we're back.
We're back.
Oh, thank you, Shell. I appreciate that. I know that Erin still uses the one that I made for her. Boy, it's been a while.
Who's Erin? I don't even know who Erin is.
EKC?
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Okay, so we are back for the Shanna Gardner bond hearing. So we can just get right into it. Now, this
right.
one is, hold on, let's see. This one is 3 hours, 48 minutes. And part 2 is 1 hour and 50 minutes. So we likely won't get all of this today.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Yeah, it's like 6 hours total.
Wow.
Let me
Sorry, that
see
seems like
this.
so long for just a bond hearing. Good grief. That's a long
Yeah.
hearing.
I think the Daybell one was, no, his was a preliminary hearing. Let me see. Here we go. This is the correct one. I saw that Trump is doing something live. I didn't realize he had a YouTube channel, but he's live doing something.
Sorry. I don't know why that's so funny to me. Trump with the YouTube
Yeah,
channel.
Yeah, it caught me off guard. I was like, is this a phone? And then Oprah is on with Harris.
Oh,
So there's like a million streams going on about that right now.
right. That's funny.
So, yeah. Oh, I didn't share. All right.
So the state filed a motion for pretrial detention, and that just found it. And then we're also, for record purposes, holding the hearing on defense motion filed in docket line 70. The state indicated that.
The old guy pushed his hearing for him. How nice of him.
Yes. Yes, thank you.
Oh my God, the mic is by someone's keyboard.
Good afternoon, Detective.
I know.
Could you please introduce yourself to the court?
My name is Christopher Johns.
And Detective Johns, what agency are you employed with?
I work for the Jacksonville Beach Police Department.
And how many years have you been, I'm going to call it Jax Beach PD for time's sake while we speak. How long have you been employed with Jax Beach PD?
A little over 5.5 years.
And prior to your
You hear that
employment
okay?
there, could you
Yeah.
describe to the
It's
court
quiet.
your
The keyboard is so
education and
loud.
job
It's
experience?
crazy.
Yeah.
I mostly worked in the financial industry, mostly consumer banking and investment management. I held a stockbroker's
I'm just gonna
seat.
go.
I'm a detective in our General Investigations Unit, which handles pretty much everything with the exception of vice or drug crimes.
So that would include homicides, armed robberies, major crimes, all the way down the line.
Yes, ma'am.
And did you have any special training or experience? to
Thank you for
become a
letting me know,
detective in
Shil.
General Investigations Unit.
On top of the police academy, I've attended approximately 300 hours of special.
I don't want to hear about his
Investigate the homicide
straight
of
hours
Jared
of training. Oh my God,
Bridegan,
this person.
correct?
Yes, ma'am.
I want to talk to you a little bit about your initial involvement in this case. February 16, 2022, were you dispatched to a scene in which Jared Bridegan was the victim?
Yes, ma'am.
And where in Jacksonville, Duval County was this homicide scene?
I was dispatched to Jacksonville Drive and Sanctuary Boulevard, which is it's really an on-ramp to JTB and also serves as an entrance into a neighborhood called the Sanctuary.
And when you arrived on scene, was Jared Bridegan already deceased?
Yes, ma'am.
There was a child in the vehicle with Jared. And I don't want to use her name because she's a minor child, but are her initials BB?
Yes.
And what was her relationship to the deceased victim, Jared Bridegan?
This
So
is Jared's daughter.
Do you know approximately at the time of your arrival on scene how old she would have been?
About 2.5.
When you arrived on scene, where was BB located?
When I arrived on scene, a good Samaritan had grabbed her from her car seat, which was in the back of the vehicle, and taken them into their vehicle and covered her with a blanket.
Do you recall what BB's demeanor was like when you encountered her on scene that night?
She
This
was
poor person is driving me
very
nuts.
upset, crying, scared, obviously.
And the Good Samaritans relayed to you that they had taken her out of her car seat. Did you have the opportunity to observe Jared Bridegan's vehicle on scene that night?
I did.
So basically, this is a lot of it is detailed in this bond hearing. So it'll kind of catch you up on the initial crime itself. So
Okay.
And Jared himself was not in the vehicle.
Correct.
Can you describe for the court, in relation to where BB was seated in her car seat, what damage you observed to the vehicle?
In relation to where her car seat was, she was in the back, but at least 2 rounds struck the interior of the vehicle, one of them striking the bottom of the window seal and shattering the window. It would have been just in front of her car seat.
that's awful.
Yeah,
you
that's
catch-
scary. I mean, that's really
Yeah.
scary. Like he could have. Oh, that's like. And I mean, just what could have happened, and just how terrifying that must have been
Right.
for her. Like she doesn't know what's going on.
The window
thing.
seal, like that's so close.
Yeah.
I didn't ask this specifically, but Jared Bridegan was pronounced deceased by the medical examiner, cause of death being gunshot wounds.
Yes, ma'am.
And from your review, were there projectiles that entered into the vehicle in which BB was in her car seat?
There were.
Did she make any statements to you or other investigators with the Jacksonville Beach PD that night?
She made mention of hearing a loud sound, boom, boom, saying that she had to take her shoes off to cover her ears, and she made mention that her daddy was sick and was on the ground and needed a doctor.
She had to take her
That's so
shoes off to cover her ears.
It's so sad. Real quick, let me tell you that. Move this over to a different screen. So when they arrested Shanna Gardner and Mario, their charges are murder in the first degree, conspiracy to commit murder, solicitation to commit a capital felony, and child abuse. So
Wow.
they did get charges because of the dog.
Good. Good.
Yeah. Oop, where's my? There it is.
I want to skip ahead in your investigation. You obviously did many, many, many hours of investigation, many interviews in the days and weeks and months following your response to this scene.
Yes, ma'am.
Did you eventually were able to make an arrest in this case for the murder of Jared Bridegan?
Yes, we made 3 arrests.
And who did you arrest?
Henry Tenon, Shanna Gardner, and Mario Fernandez-Saldana.
I want to speak for a moment about Henry Tenon. Henry Tenon was arrested and charged with the murder of Jared Bridegan, including the discharge of the firearm that caused his death.
Yes, ma'am.
And to your knowledge, has Henry Tenon pled guilty to his role in the murder of Jared Bridegan?
He did.
Were you present when Mr. Tenon gave what's called a sworn statement in conjunction with his plea, which outlined his involvement in Jared's murder?
Yes, I was.
What did he advise you about how it was that he came to be involved in Jared's murder?
Mr. Tenon was a tenant at one of their rental properties, and he had been approached by Mr. Fernandez a number of times, asking him if he would participate in his homicide. Mr. Tenon stated that he initially denied Mr. Fernandez's request. However, once Mr. Fernandez had agreed that
You're welcome to chime in at any point. I just don't
Okay.
want you to feel like you have to be quiet if
No,
if
no, no,
you're
no. I'm
honest.
just listening. Yeah.
Okay.
they would, being Shanna and Mario, would invest $150,000 into a pallet business. He agreed to participate.
Okay, and I want to go back and ask some follow-up questions about that. When you say that Henry Tenon said Mario Fernandez requested him to participate in a homicide, what specifically was that conversation, according to Mr. Tenon?
Did he say
stated that,
$150,000?
in exchange for the money,
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. That's a crap ton of money. Jeez. Here, just have $150,000 if you go and.
Hello, Glennis. Welcome.
Crazy.
Yeah, they obviously really wanted him gone.
Yeah.
How they thought that they would be able to transfer money like that and not get caught.
With
Like, I
handwritten
really,
checks. They said that
yeah,
he was handwritten checks. Like, how dumb
mhm,
are you?
yeah. And you would think that, I mean, they had to have known that they were going to get caught,
Right.
unless they are really that dumb that they thought
Right.
that it would just fall on Tenon and he wouldn't flip, you know?
Right.
That Mr. Fernandez would provide a firearm, and then they would contrive a plan. Initially, the plan was to kidnap Mr. Bridegan and then take him to another location and murder him.
And did
Catch
Mr.
that?
Tenon advise
Yeah, they were gonna kidnap him.
Mm-hmm.
as to what, if anything, Mario Fernandez-Saldana said about why he wanted to murder Jared Bridegan?
They had initially planned, or were planning this in late 2021, and then after returning from a Hawaii trip in February, Mr. Fernandez approached Mr. Tenon and stated that this needed to happen this week. And if he didn't get it done, that his marriage was going to end.
Did Henry Tenon
His marriage was gonna end.
know Jared
Yeah.
Bridegan?
It's like she threatened him. Like this Fernandez guy
Cow.
is complete polar opposite of Jared Bridegan.
Sounds like it.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
did not.
His
He's like a
marriage was-
Have you ever
grifter is what he
seen
comes
him
off to me
before the
as.
night of
Yeah.
the homicide on February 16th, 2022?
No, in fact,
And I
there
think they
were
met at the
two
gym.
instances where Mr. Fernandez took Mr. Tenon in an attempt to show him Mr. Bridegan, and both of those were failed attempts.
Other than the relationship of Mr. Tenon being a tenant of Mario Fernandez-Saldana and Shanna Gardner's rental company, were you able to find in your investigation any other link or connection between Henry Tenon and Jared Bridegan?
None.
In your conversations with Henry Tenon, was Mr. Tenon able to, even before this night, describe what Jared Bridegan looked like?
Not at all.
What type of car he drove?
No.
Did he know on the night that he murdered Jared Bridegan that BB would be in the vehicle with him?
He did not know that.
Detective, I'm going to draw your attention to a screen that's in your witness box. Some of these exhibits have been entered by agreement of both parties. I'm going to start with Exhibit 1. Detective, what is this?
These are articles of organization for a limited liability company named First Choice Home Rentals LLC. And the second document is a annual filing for that same LLC.
Okay, so when you say the annual filing
Oh.
on State's Exhibit 2, this would be the annual report of First Choice Home Rentals LLC.
Correct.
Going back to State's Exhibit 1, you have some familiarity with this from your prior experience. Who are the title holders or principals on these articles of organization?
Both Ms. Gardner and Mr. Fernandez are listed as managing members, or which would be considered owners of the LLC.
And the LLC is First Choice Home Rentals. What was the business of this LLC as incorporated?
The business was established to manage their rental property holdings.
And these are some of the articles, the full exhibit the court will have, but under Article 5, the electronic signator on this Articles of Incorporation is Shanna Gardner. Is that correct?
I don't recall, to be honest with you.
Moving to State's Exhibit 2, this document is an annual report. What does that mean?
This is just a document that's filed every year to basically let the state know that this is still an active company and that to make any changes to the ownership or management of the company.
And this was filed in the upper right-hand corner, January 28, 2022, which was a few weeks before the murder of Jared Bridegan. And again, at the bottom, who are the still owners or signatories on this LLC?
The listed owners are Shanna Gardner and Mario Fernandez.
I'm turning your attention to State's Composite Exhibit 3. Detective, can you describe for the court what these documents are?
This is a bank statement from Navy Federal Credit Union that held the account for First Choice Home Rentals.
And in the exhibits, the court will
Did they
receive.
did they pay him through their rental?
And they are accompanied by
remember.
certification of records from Navy Federal.
Yes, ma'am.
And there's
Pay him
a
through what?
red box here. Can you describe for the court what?
Huh?
They paid
I'm
him
wondering
what?
if they used the actual, it seems like they're using the actual business for the rental property to pay out for the hit.
Oh, I see.
That's what I'm guessing here.
Yeah.
But they made some big transfers though.
And they also said that there was handwritten checks too.
Mm-hmm.
So they
wonder
must
if
have
they're
given
gonna
it looks
show it.
like they give it to him in like chunks.
Yeah. It was probably like some beforehand and then some after.
Yeah, that would make sense.
What that is indicating.
The red box is indicating a transfer from a separate checking account also held at Navy Federal Credit Union. In this instance, it's stating that on March 15th, $5,000 was transferred
Oh, should
from
I
the
speed this
Shanna
up?
Gardner Irrevocable Trust account at Navy
can speed
Federal
up a little.
into the First Choice Home Rentals
Yeah,
account.
because it's not like he's talking fast. So
And this is another
see
exhibit,
how-
or another page on Composite Exhibit 3, again showing that the First Choice Home Rentals LLC was getting, appears to be monthly transfers from the Shanna Gardner Irrevocable Trust.
There was another transfer in April of the same amount.
And we'll come back to that trust in a moment. I'm going to move to State's Exhibit D. What records are we looking at here?
This is a PNC bank statement for Mr. Henry Tenon's account.
4. I'm sorry, Composite Exhibit
Well,
4.
thank you, Vivian.
In your discussions with Mr. Tenon involving how he became a part of this scheme to murder Jared Bridegan, you mentioned that he was promised a payment. Can you give us any more details about what Mr. Tenon advised you that he was promised and how he received this money?
He was promised $150,000 in the form of investment into a pallet business.
And was this payment going to come in a lump sum or in installments?
It would be installment payments,
Was there any discussion of why that would be the case?
as to not arise any suspicion.
And moving through Composite Exhibit 4, documents for Mr. Tenon, and a portion of his standard checking statement.
They got effects
Drawing
on
your
there.
attention to the screen now, there's a
Shoot,
red
that's
box.
funny.
Can you describe for the court what is indicated by that on this checking statement?
There you go,
The
Geneva.
statement is
There's a
indicating
check.
a deposit for $2,000 on March 28th, which would be
Yep, there
in
it
line with
is.
the check that's in the top right-hand corner.
And this is
Does it
March
say
28th,
something in the memo?
2022.
Correct.
This would be about
Mm,
does it
man,
say
this
murder
is-
of Jared? No, I'm kidding.
guilty. Instant
Guilty.
guilty. I can't read that. That doesn't seem like a man's handwriting.
No, it really kind of doesn't.
about a month and some time after the murder of Jared Bridegan.
That's correct.
And then a second.
Their
red
visual
box.
effects are cracking me up. Their
Correct.
I
transitions.
know.
What this indicates.
This is a check that was deposited on the next day, on March 29th, for $3,000, also written from First Choice Home Rentals.
Okay. And on the next slide, we see the final check
funny.
in the final box. Can you describe what we're seeing here?
This check is.
Somebody
April
discovered
6th,
iMovie.
$5,000 written to
Yeah.
Henry Tenon from First Choice Home Rentals.
Oh, there
And in
we
the
go.
subject line, it says Kickstarter,
Good luck.
Good luck. Can you describe for the court, based on your conversation?
Wait, what did they say it said?
And in the subject line, it
Kickstarter?
says Kickstarter, good luck. Can you describe for the court, based on your
Kickstarter.
conversations with Mr. Tenon, what this check is actually for?
Mr. Tenon stated this was the first of many payments that was supposed to be an investment into his pallet company, which was actually payment for the homicide.
Now, the prior checks, the $3,000 and $4,000 were marked for landscaping and roofing. What did Mr. Tenon say about those payments?
He stated that those payments were for legitimate work that he'd done on the rental property on Potomac Avenue.
So this was the first and the only payment he actually received from First Choice Home Rentals for the contract killing of Jared Bridegan.
Correct.
I want to talk about Ms. Gardner and Mr. Fernandez, the
Murder for hire.
development of them as suspects in this case. When you were investigating the murder of Jared Bridegan, were you able to eliminate through investigative techniques other potential suspects?
In the beginning, we really didn't have any suspects. We look at everyone who might be close to the family, any relatives, spouse. And so through various techniques, we do start to kind of eliminate people who just had no reason or no capability of doing it.
During your investigation, did you do search warrants and subpoenas into Jared Bridegan and those in his immediate inner circle?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you download Jared Bridegan's phones, laptops, work phones, personal devices?
We did.
And you reviewed all those records?
We did.
Did you get financial records and call detail records for Jared Bridegan?
We did.
Did you get them for his wife, Kirsten Bridegan?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you get them for many people close to him and his family and inner circle?
For many
We did.
people.
Was there any indication through your investigation that anybody, putting aside Ms. Gardner and Mr. Fernandez-Saldana, had any problems with Jared Bridegan or any motive to carry out the homicide of Jared Bridegan?
No, there was not.
There's no debts that he was hiding,
Nope.
no evidence of drug use that he was hiding.
By all accounts, Mr. Bridegan was
Why
a
does
very
he look
boring
like he
person
wants
who
to
lived a
laugh?
Very close and religious family life.
Probably because he's
He had
very
no debts,
straight,
had plenty of money in the bank,
Bridegan.
no indications of gambling or drug habits.
Sorry.
The homicide of Jared Bridegan.
Probably because Jared Bridegan, he was an executive at Microsoft, and he seemed very straight-laced. And I believe that he met Shanna.
No, I mean, the cop looks like he's looking like he wants to laugh.
Yeah. Well, my opinion is he's laughing because of how Jared was just very vanilla, like
Oh.
straight-laced.
Like nothing. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, there was not.
There's no debts that he was hiding,
Nope.
no evidence of drug use that he was hiding.
By all accounts, Mr. Bridegan was a very boring person who lived a very close and religious family life. He had no debts, had plenty of money in the bank, no indications of gambling or drug habits, no affairs, and these were all things that we checked for.
And you even spoke to people who even had minor arguments with Jared over the years, just to check them out and clear them.
Correct.
So during your investigation, at some point, did you start hearing from people that you should be looking at Shanna Gardner and Mario Fernandez-Saldana as suspects?
Almost immediately.
And how did you get information directing you to look into these individuals?
We had several people come forward who shared stories that they had heard over the years of Ms. Gardner stating that she hated Jared and could not stand the fact that she had to share custody with him and that she wanted him dead.
And you heard this unsolicited from numerous people, not just one person.
Correct.
When you heard this information, did you investigate into the past history of Shanna Gardner and Jared Bridegan?
Yes, ma'am.
And they had gone through a pretty acrimonious divorce.
Correct.
And can you briefly describe for the court what that investigation uncovered for you?
They were divorced in 2015, and pretty much consistently between 2015 up until Jared's death, they were in court at least annually. Pretty much every aspect of the child custody was litigated and fought through mediation. It was to the degree that they no longer had any type of verbal communication about their children. Everything was done either in writing or through an attorney.
Like, that's pretty bad.
Yeah.
2015 and in court for it every single year.
Yeah.
Like, that'd be a nightmare and so expensive.
Yeah. Well, and it's like just ridiculous for the poor kids, you know? It's like their parents can't
Yeah.
even communicate with each other like adults, so they have to go through an attorney. I mean,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, that's really bad.
And from your investigation, were they even able to be in the same room together?
No,
How did they co-parent?
through the court.
When they went to the school, did they have separate parent-teacher conferences?
It was indicated that they had separate parent-teacher conferences, they would have separate doctor's appointments, or only one of them would attend the doctor's appointments. There was virtually nothing that they did together as far as their kids were concerned.
During your
that's
investigation,
sad.
you spoke with Mr. Fernandez-Saldana and Ms. Gardner. Did they tell you and corroborate this information that there was this bad relationship between them as co-parents?
Yes, much of this information came directly from them.
And from your investigation, can you describe for the court some of what you uncovered about what Ms. Gardner was trying to do through the court system in terms of Jared's ability to participate in co-parenting?
Ms. Gardner was attempting to initiate a quote-unquote social investigation or a BCF
Can you
investigation.
please cover the
in an
Crystal
effort
Rogers
to
case?
gain, if not majority,
Yeah, I can look into that one. Yeah, if you guys ever have suggestions or anything, yeah, please let me know.
Custody,
write that down.
Sole custody over the children, so that she did not have to involve Mr. Bridegan in custody issues.
What kind of things were they disagreeing over in terms of child rearing?
Everything from schedules to who could be around when the children were there, and then to more severe things such as medication, medical devices that one of the twins needed. There was little that wasn't litigated.
It's an interesting case.
What about religion?
Okay.
One of a big contingent, which I don't think it's ever made it to litigation, Mr. Bridegan did state that he wanted to raise his children in the Mormon faith, and Shanna did not want to raise the kids. At some point, one of the twins indicated that she wanted to be baptized into the Church of Latter-day Saints, and this was very troubling for Ms. Gardner.
And when we all hear that, can you put into perspective for the court how big of an issue religion was to Jared Bridegan?
He was a devout member of the church, a very faithful person, so it would have been an extreme issue for him.
I also want to talk about Shanna Gardner's financial motivations.
Oh my God.
Earlier, we
Person's
saw
keyword.
records from the Shanna Gardner Irrevocable Trust. Can you describe for the court, have you seen the trust documents yourself?
I have.
Can you describe for the court what the trust is and what it was, I guess, created to do?
The trust would operate as a separate entity. The trust was funded by Ms. Gardner's parents, and it was a way that they essentially give money for the benefit of Ms. Gardner and the twins that would not be considered her personal income, and so therefore Mr. Bridegan would not have any access to those funds.
What?
That's shady.
Yeah. But I'm also wondering now, do the parents have any involvement in this?
Possible. Yeah.
If they were giving her money,
It's probably
into
where
her
the money came
trust,
from.
yeah, that's what I'm wondering. Is
Yeah.
were they transferring her money to her?
Oof.
In this case, the grantors were Mr. and Mrs. Gardner, and the trustee was Mario Fernandez.
So the trust not only was something that people with a lot of money do with their money, it was also partially motivated by wanting to prevent that money from being litigated in the courts between Jared Bridegan and Shanna Gardner.
That's correct.
Had they had a history of litigating finances in addition to all the child custody issues?
Yes, during their divorce, their financial situation, especially in their marital home, was heavily litigated.
And I'm turning to a portion of State's Composite Exhibit 6. Detective Johns, this is from the trust document itself. Can you describe for the court what this clause means?
This clause states that once Ms. Gardner has no more legal entanglements with her ex-husband, Mr. Bridegan, she may elect to serve as trustee of her trust, essentially giving her control over the assets inside the trust.
At the time of Jared
Oh,
Bridegan's
shit.
death, who was the acting trustee of the trust?
Mario Fernandez.
I want to turn your attention to what we discussed.
So he was
earlier,
the
that you actually
trustee?
spoke with Mr. Fernandez-Saldana.
Yeah, it seemed like once Bridegan was gone, she had
Oof.
control over the trust.
Okay. Well, that's
She
some
had
motive right there.
motivation. Yeah. Yep.
On Ms. Gardner in the course of your investigation. How many times did you speak with Shanna Gardner after the homicide of Jared Bridegan?
I spoke to her twice.
And let's talk about that first interview. Did that occur March 1st, 2022?
Yes, ma'am.
And did you speak with Ms. Gardner and Mr. Fernandez-Saldana at the Jacksonville Beach Police Station?
I did.
Did you ask them to come to the police station and speak with you?
Initially, yes, I did.
And were you speaking to many, many other people as you testified earlier? At that point, you had no suspects.
We were doing dozens of interviews.
What was the purpose of these conversations with them? Were they custodial interrogations? Were they under suspicion at that time?
Absolutely not. At that time, we were just really collecting information about who Jared was, anyone that he might have associated with. We wanted to basically know everything we could about him. Really, he was kind of the focus at that point in our investigation.
Well, what did you advise Ms. Gardner was the purpose of your conversation with her on March 1st, 2022?
I stated at that time we were doing something that we refer to as victimology.
And that would be a background investigation into the victim in this case, Jared
Victimology.
Bridegan.
Correct.
When you spoke with her, did you speak with her in what's called the soft interview room at Jacksonville Beach Police Station?
Correct. We have two interview areas. One of them would be what someone would maybe describe as an interrogation room. There's no soft furniture. It's very hard, very cold. This is just a room with a couch and a couple of chairs, and it's where we conduct our interview, really just more interviews versus interrogations.
And Ms. Gardner was brought to that room for her interview,
Correct.
just like every other witness you spoke to in this case.
That's correct.
And during that conversation, just a brief overview of her demeanor and how that interview sort of began.
She was very forthcoming. It was a very typical interview. She was very talkative and provided a lot of context without a whole lot of questions being asked.
And you say provide a lot of context. What was the general tone of that context she provided?
The general tone of it was, I don't really know a whole lot about Jared now, but I will tell you how he was when we were married and what our divorce was like. Essentially, he was manipulative and caused her a lot of trauma, and then moving on to we had a terrible divorce, and then talking about how that affected the children, and so on, really.
Did she bring up at any point that Jared Bridegan was at all abusive towards her, physically or verbally?
She stated that he was, in fact, not physically or verbally abusive.
And during this conversation, part of the reason you spoke to her is that she and her husband.
So he was manipulative, but he was not
but not abusive.
physically. Yeah.
He doesn't strike me as,
emotionally.
I mean, who knows, but he seems
Right.
so, I don't know. Like, he doesn't seem like somebody who would be manipulative. Like, he's not somebody who gambles or has affairs or
Right.
anything
Yeah.
like that. So it's like, what would he be? I don't know. I mean, maybe, but it just sounds a little not
Yeah.
true.
It sounds like she was trying to like set it up.
Right.
Husband, Mario Fernandez, and her children, A.B. and L.B., were the last people to see Jared Bridegan alive.
That's correct.
And did she give you some indication as to where everybody was in the house during the time of the homicide?
She stated that when the kids were dropped off by Mr. Bridegan, Mario was asleep, and she was cooking with her earphones
Yep.
in the kitchen.
I think she
Did
was
say
too.
where he was sleeping?
I don't know that she stated that where he was sleeping during her interview, but he indicated that he was on the couch.
Did you have a second, and you also interviewed Mario Fernandez-Saldana separately, but on the same date as this interview?
Correct.
I want to jump forward. April 15th, 2022, did you have a second interview with Ms. Gardner?
I did.
And how was it that you came to interview her a second time?
At that point, we were not anticipating having a second interview. We were actually approached by Mr. Fernandez. He asked if they could come by. They were receiving a lot of media scrutiny or people from their neighborhood complaining, basically accusing them of being involved in this. So Mr. Fernandez specifically wanted to know if this was something that we were encouraging or that if we were behind it. We indicated that we were not behind that. And then he just wanted
sounds
to vent
paranoid.
his frustration to what was going on. After speaking with him, we asked if Ms. Gardner wanted to come by and basically do the same thing, and she agreed to come speak with us.
Like the first interview, was this what we would call a soft interview or a custodial interrogation?
It was a soft interview.
Same interview room with the couches,
Correct.
no reading of Miranda rights,
No.
no questioning of her as a suspect.
Correct.
During this interview, describe her demeanor.
This demeanor, she was much more upset, but she was upset because she felt like she was being attacked in the media or on social media, really. And she did not feel safe leaving her home because people were recognizing her and they were basically blaming her for this homicide.
In this particular interview, did you ask her many questions?
It's like,
No, not at
I
all.
wonder why.
Did she do most of the talking,
She didn't.
unprompted?
Yes.
You did ask her a question about whether she had any theories about what happened to Jared.
Towards the end of the interview, we asked if she had any theories about what she thought might have happened.
Did she?
She provided some.
And let's start there. What did she say she believed happened to Jared Bridegan?
She said that maybe it was a drug deal gone wrong or a gang initiation, and then
Oh my
she
God.
stated
Gang
that she was
initiation.
looking to Kirsten Bridegan.
What did she say about it being a drug deal gone wrong?
I was just going to say that, a
Think that
gang
was possible.
initiation.
Yeah.
To you.
She
Right.
said
She's like
she had heard from
straight-laced,
friends that Sanctuary Boulevard.
33-year-old dude's going to be initiated into a gang.
Yeah. And he's an executive at Microsoft.
Right.
She's, yeah.
Cuckoo?
Or was where you go to buy trucks in Jacksonville.
Yeah.
And you're a general investigations detective with the Jacksonville Beach Police Department. Based on your knowledge and your years with the force, is that true?
I've never heard that.
Okay. What about, you mentioned gangs. What did she say about gangs?
She said that she'd heard that some gangs do initiations by doing drive-by shootings like this.
Okay. And in your experience with the Jacksonville Beach Police Department, have you all ever had a gang-related drive-by shooting initiation case involving the murder of a father in a vehicle with his child at 7:50 p.m.?
I'm unaware of any of them.
In general, do you get many gang initiation shootings in Jacksonville Beach?
I'm not aware of any.
Lastly, what did she tell you about Kirsten Bridegan?
Just that we should look into her as a suspect for the homicide.
Did she give you any reason?
Oh my God. That they should look into Kristen Bridegan, his wife, his current wife.
Yep. Because, you know, she's initiating into a gang.
I do know that once Jared passed, she started a nonprofit
Mm-hmm.
that she gets in like diapers and things like that and sends them out to those in need.
Well, that's nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, because, you know, she really seems like a gangbanger. You know, with her
Right.
charity, you know, sending diapers to people. It's
Yeah.
a front for a gang cartel.
Right? She's about that gang life.
Right. Ridiculous.
Oh, yeah. I mean, this guy's already talked to her, obviously,
Right.
meaning Kristen. You think that, like, this is so funny because it's nothing
It's
like
absurd.
what he, yeah, exactly. Like, come up with something better, maybe? I don't know.
Right.
Reasons?
Not that I can recall at this point.
All right, so she gave you these theories to potentially investigate. Presumably she was trying to be helpful.
Presumably.
Did she ever mention that you all should investigate Mario Fernandez-Saldana?
No.
Did she ever mention any conversations she had with Mario Fernandez-Saldana about killing Jared Bridegan?
No.
Did she ever mention someone by the name of Henry Tenon?
She did not.
Did she ever mention anything about knowledge of a vehicle that looked like the one in the news release that Jacksonville Beach put out?
No.
Did she ever mention to you that people might come forward saying that she had said she wanted Jared Bridegan dead?
No.
Did she ever mention to you that people may come forward saying that either she or Mario Fernandez-Saldana had talked in the past about hiring a hitman to kill Jared Bridegan?
No.
Was that your last contact with Ms. Gardner?
Yes, it was.
Now, after that point, you began to develop leads in your investigation, and you began to look at some point at Ms. Gardner and Mr. Fernandez-Saldana's suspects.
That's correct.
And you zeroed in on Henry Tenon and were able to identify him as a person of interest, perhaps the shooter.
Correct.
And after his arrest, you were able to obtain evidence further into his involvement, as well as the involvement of Ms. Gardner and Mr. Fernandez-Saldana.
That's correct.
I want to go through some of what your investigation revealed after you last spoke with Ms. Gardner. And for the court's information, in the state's exhibit, there's a composite 7. It's an extraction report of a cell
got
phone
text
belonging
messages?
to a woman named Kim Jensen. Detective Johns, who is Kim Jensen in relation to Ms. Gardner?
Kim Jensen was a lady that Ms. Gardner met when she moved to Jacksonville. They were a member of the same ward or church, and they became very good friends, by all means, best friends.
Did their
So they went far back. This was 2015.
Yeah.
friendship begin before Jared Bridegan and Ms. Gardner were divorced?
No, yeah, their friendship did begin before their divorce, correct?
So she knew her when she being Ms. Jensen, knew Ms. Gardner when she was married to Jared Bridegan.
Yes, that's correct. And in fact, she knew Jared longer than she knew Ms. Gardner.
Based on your investigation, we see your text messages. At some point, did you obtain a cell phone download of Kim Jensen's phone?
We did.
And was there contact between Ms. Jensen and Ms. Gardner?
There was extensive contact on a daily basis between the two of them,
For how long?
at least going back to 2015.
And how frequent was their contact with each other?
It was numerous times a day, phone calls, text messages,
Voice notes?
all kinds of things.
And from your review of, not relevant to the homicide necessarily, but for context, your review of their contact, did they seem to have a very close and open relationship?
It would certainly appear that way.
They talk about the most intimate details of their lives,
Yes,
the most mundane details of their lives.
yes.
So we're looking at your state's composite exhibit 8, These are text messages on Ms. Jensen's phone that you found between her and Shanna Gardner dating back to 2015. And we're going to start there and work our way forward to 2022. I know it's difficult to read. Can you please describe for the court the conversation, tone, and tenor between Ms. Gardner and Ms. Jensen regarding Jared that began around this time period?
The context of this particular chat chain is Shanna telling Ms. Jensen that Matt is ready to come over there and to talk to him, meaning Mr. Bridegan. She said it would not get physical, and maybe then moves on to basically say, you know, that they could maybe encourage it to become physical at some point.
What?
Ms. Stifler, what did you identify this as?
This would be State's Composite Exhibit 8.
8, okay, thank you.
Sorry, my computer decided to reset its password in the middle of this.
Okay.
In 2015, what was the status of Shanna Gardner and Jared Bridegan's relationship?
Yeah, this whole
In the beginning of 2015,
This
they were
whole
still
part
married, and they did
is all
eventually
him.
divorce in 2015.
All
Moving on
the
to page
police
2 of
officer?
State's Composite Exhibit 8, more
yeah, because I broke it down into 2 parts,
Mhm.
and it's been so long since I did it, so that's why I was just looking. But yeah, he is the whole.
This is all just his testimony.
Mm-hmm. And I know that her sister's gonna testify in the next part, and I think maybe a friend. I can't remember, but yeah.
more
And
text
obviously
between Ms.
those are
Gardner and
defending her.
Jensen. What are they
Right.
talking about
Why
here?
she needs bail.
Says Matt
Right.
was ready to come over here today to talk to him. It wouldn't get physical yet, but I tell him if these things happen X, Y, and Z, then A, B, and C will happen to him. And if he calls the cops, Matt would know, and A, B, C would happen. He said, I tell him
Jeez.
he can thank the beautiful woman he's leeching off of that he is even still alive, because if it were up to him, he would have disappeared months ago.
Oh my
I
God.
told him your comment about the casserole, ha ha ha. We both had a good laugh.
Okay, then Ms. Jensen replies, and she talks at some point in this text here about funeral potatoes. Did that phrase become relevant to your investigation?
It did. There were 2 phrases that kind of were a continuation during all of their text messages. One of those referred to as a casserole, also aka funeral potatoes, or then there was the phrase of doing magic. I.e.,
Alright.
sorry.
So sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you. Let's talk about the funeral potatoes casserole.
The hell?
Did these words, were they used frequently in conversations between Shanna Gardner and Kim Jensen?
Yes, they were.
And in what context were they used?
In reference to the death of Jared.
So there's more text here about funeral potatoes. These are, in fairness, everybody blows.
Have you ever heard of that? Of funeral potatoes?
Yeah, I've heard of, I don't know if I've heard of funeral potatoes, but I've heard of like funeral casserole. And I don't know, like I think it's just a casserole that's commonly made for people to, you know, bring to the gatherings, but I don't know what it is.
Why the hell is it potatoes? Why can't it be like carrots? I mean, I don't know.
Right, broccoli, I mean,
Right.
something.
I've never been to that I can think of had funeral potatoes.
Yeah. I have never, I mean, I've been to like after gatherings where they have food,
Mhm.
but I've never eaten, so I don't really know what people
Yeah,
bring.
that's probably partially my reasoning for it too. But it's very strange.
Like
But I
I
can
would
see
feel
how
weird.
if it's funeral potatoes, how that would
Yeah,
mean to Shanna and her friends as
right,
him being gone.
right.
Blows off steam when they're at their assessment.
Absolutely.
Okay. But at some point, did these texts continue and escalate to the point where they became significant to your investigation?
There was a continuation of this type of texting between them throughout their entire relationship that we were aware of, starting in 2015 through at least 2021. And I would say that the messages are much more vulgar than this.
So here we have, again, on State's Composite Exhibit 8, text messages from 2015. Shanna Gardner saying, I would happily watch him
interesting.
give him the lethal injection. They're talking about they would love to see him get the death penalty and they could make a casserole. And moving on again, in State's Composite Exhibit 8, more text messages. And in these ones, there's a discussion. Can you describe to the court where this discussion develops?
These are essentially theories of what they could do to, Ms. Jensen refers to Jared as stupid.
Okay, so stupid, and we'll see that in other text messages. That was a nickname that Ms. Gardner and Ms. Jensen used to refer to Jared Bridegan.
Correct.
Okay. So what direction does this conversation take?
It's essentially just more about ways that Ms. Gardner is unhappy with Mr. Bridegan, that she would like for him no longer to be alive, and then they talk about casserole, and then they will move on to other things as far as how to cause his death.
These are difficult to read. This is State's Exhibit Composite 9. These are texts in 2016, and the next slide will be zoomed in a little bit. But here we see Ms. Gardner. This is the first time she brings up the word hitman in her discussions with Ms. Jensen. Can you describe for the court what this conversation centers around and how it develops?
Essentially, Ms. Gardner's upset. She says it's too late to get a hitman. I'm serious. I think Ms. Jensen is trying to kind of talk her down a little bit. And then they move on to basically where they start talking about, does she know anyone that could actually carry out this plan?
And we see that down here in the bottom. You can draw on the screen if there's anything you want to circle. That Ms. Jensen says, I know Steve's husband knows people. Ms. Gardner replies, and then replies, I'm not even joking, I want him gone. And the conversation goes on from there. At the time they're having this conversation, and here's a zoomed in version of it, simultaneous with this conversation, did you also find text messages between Ms. Jensen and the person that they were discussing finding them a hitman in the previous slide?
Correct. So while this conversation was going on, Kim Jensen reaches out to the person that they're referring to and asks if she knows anyone that can do magic, i.e. make someone disappear. Referring to, do they know anyone?
And one quick second. These text messages between Ms. Jensen and the third party are referenced in both exhibit we just looked at and text messages that you found later, correct?
That's correct.
And in your conversations with Ms. Jensen, she disclosed to you that she reached out to this person because of her conversations with Ms. Gardner.
Correct.
Your Honor, at this time, the state would seek to move into evidence which has been marked with State's K as State's Exhibit 10.
Any objection?
I'm sorry, this State's J as State's Exhibit 18.
Your Honor, single objection. I don't see anything in here where Ms. Gardner is asking Ms. Jensen to reach out to sue. I don't know how that can be, what Ms. Jensen did can be used against Ms. Gardner at this point. Again, we're talking about things that are 6 years prior to the killing of Jared Bridegan. I don't believe there's any allegation from the state whatsoever that this led to anything or that even in the state's theory to the death of Mr. Bridegan. It's totally irrelevant. It is so stale, and this court should not even consider it for purposes of this bond hearing. It's not relevant.
Your Honor, that
Even as a co-conspirator statement?
I'm sorry, but if someone is talking about hiring a hitman and funeral potatoes and doing magic, even if it's years prior, like that seems relevant to me.
Are they saying that the conspiracy went back to 2016? Is that the state's argument?
Yes.
Your Honor, the date range encompasses these text messages in the charged indictment. There are further statements leading up to the death of Jared Bridegan between these individuals. They are relevant because they show Ms. Gardner's state of mind, intent, incitement, encouragement as it relates to being a principal of first-degree murder. This is a bond hearing. The rules of evidence are loosened. There's no jury before the court. The court can give whatever weight to these text messages it deems fit based on the argument of Mr. Carodi, but his argument goes to the weight, not the admissibility. They are admissible because they are simultaneous statements to a conversation she's having with Ms. Jensen, to a third party that is then referenced by Ms. Gardner and Ms. Jensen about what it is they're planning to do or hoping to see done.
As far as the dates, the indictment covers a different time period for the conspiracy. I'm looking at it. As a count two, the conspiracy covers November. No, one in between.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, I see it.
Thank you, Shell.
Your Honor, and I would argue then we have a multiple conspiracy problem here. What are they actually charging us as the conspiracy? Because the conspiracy, I think that you have a multiple conspiracy problem.
Hey, Kat. It's good to see you.
Maybe for a jury, but why would that apply in a bond hearing?
Judge, the argument would be relevant as to purposes of this hearing, which would be, one, because there's only one capital offense on this indictment, the proof evident presumption grade, and the evidence that the state must carry with regard to that is only to the first degree murder charge. So evidence of the conspiracy, I would say, is not relevant. And then the second question would be the
Okay, I hope your friend had a great birthday the other day.
state's motion for pretrial detention, which is generally, is she a danger to the community or a flight risk? And I don't see how this evidence would be relevant to that either. And I don't believe there's any connection to this piece of evidence and the killing of Jared Bridegan in February of 2022.
Hey, Adam. I hope you've been doing
What's the
good
connection?
as well.
Hey, Adam.
Connection goes to her intent, incitement, encouragement. Her intent that the crime be committed, which is the first element of the principal language. She's a principal of first degree murder. She wasn't the one who pulled the trigger. She's the one who set the events in motion. The state has to prove that she had the intent, specifically, that the murder of Jared Bridegan take place. So all of these statements and all of this interaction with her co-conspirators and her attempts to solicit and inspire other individuals that failed up until the point she found the ability to complete the task with Mario Fernandez and Tenon are relevant to her intent.
I guess my question would be, that's why
Whoa.
this is admissible. Why would the conspiracy of KJ reaching out to whoever those text messages would be relevant and the connection to Ms. Gardner?
Because she attempted to bring in these individuals into her conspiracy that ultimately resulted in the death of Jared Bridegan and Mario Fernandez-Saldana, as the court will hear from Detective John's testimony later in this hearing.
Judge, if the court reads these text messages that are on the screen, Ms. Gardner never asked Ms. Jensen to reach out to sue. This is Ms. Jensen on her own volition. I don't know how that intent can be imputed to Ms. Gardner.
Give me just a moment. These are hard to read.
Must be that cameraman that is, well, I don't know.
No, I think
Trying to
it's the
see.
lady that's typing. And I think it's getting picked up on the witness microphone.
That's really loud.
What are the timing of those other messages?
So when she and Ms. Gardner suggesting that she'd like to get a hitman, she says, I know Sue's husband knows people. She says, I'm not even joking, I want him gone. That's at 1:31 p.m., 7/17/2016. The following slide shows contact between Ms. Jensen and another party.
Yeah, Glenn
on
S.,
the
that's
same day at
exactly it.
4:33 p.m. And then State's Exhibit Composite 9 includes text messages on 7/19 and 7/21, in which Ms. Gardner asks Ms. Jensen, do I ask so-and-so about people? Should I ask him today? Referencing the same person
speed this
that
up a
Ms.
little
Jensen
bit?
and this other third party were discussing.
Yeah.
Tell me the date and time of that.
That one would be July 21st and July 22nd. She asks on July 21st, do I ask X about people? I'd wait. July 22nd, can I ask M today? Let's see what H says.
Okay, give me a second.
Yes, ma'am. They're also using language in this text that's at issue, code words that they use in other discussions, such as magic, making someone disappear, etc. This conversation clearly is in context of Ms. Gardner and Ms. Jensen discussing, asking these people. She just reached out. It doesn't, my contention is she did ask her to reach out. When she says, Sue's husband, I know people, she says, I'm not even joking, I want him gone. That seems like the go-ahead to reach out. I think it's relevant, and the follow-up conversation they have references the conversation Ms. Jensen had with this third party. In the context of following up, let's ask these people, following up, let's ask these people, using the code word that she uses with the third party. It gives context to what the defendant and Ms. Jensen are discussing.
She's a young judge.
I was just going to say that. Say that she looks really young for a judge.
And the messages you're saying are on the same date? just
Yes,
later in
ma'am.
the time?
And these messages between Ms. Gardner and Ms. Jensen, they're saying things.
No, I'm saying the messages that are in question are on the same date, just later in time? You
Yes,
said
ma'am.
4 o'clock?
They were at 4:30. This conversation continues from 1:27 p.m. through 4:49:56 p.m. Once they're discussing these code words, Chris Angel and Magician disappear. The texts of the third party are in the midst of these text messages also discussing magicians and making people disappear. And then Ms. Gardner and Ms. Jensen in the following days reference the individuals that are
Cat is Dad's Gone Live the only channel that you mod for as far as like the chases? I think it was was it Dad's Gone Live or was it the other one? What? I subscribe to so many of them. I'm trying to. The reason I'm asking you is because I was going to drop the link in the chat. If you just tell me which channel it is, I can drop it.
With police chases?
Yeah. Mhm.
Cool.
We bumped into each other because I'm constantly watching channels
Chase.
in California that go out and get
Follow
calls
them.
and things like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, hey.
Is that the one at 17? I'm sorry, 7:17 at 4:45? Is that what you're referring to?
yes, ma'am. On the third column, the first one, two,
The
three,
fourth?
four text messages. And then the first text message in the fourth column,
Might not
and then
be
the last text
that
message in the
one.
second
Might
column,
be-
and the entire first column.
Anything further?
No, Your Honor.
All right, I'll overrule the objection.
Alright, Detective Johns, I sort of did it for you. I went through these text messages. In these messages, Ms. Gardner and Ms. Jensen are discussing getting a hitman, not even being joking, and asking if Sue's husband is. Oh, I'm sorry. And that would be Jay coming in as State's 18.
All right, I'll overrule the defense objection. J will be marked as State's Exhibit 18. All right, I'm sorry, you may proceed.
And Detective Johns, we are speaking about older messages, but in your course of your investigation, did this type of discussion continue between Ms. Gardner and Ms. Jensen all the way up to Jared's death?
It does.
Might be
And these
chasing
messages, they use what
reality.
you mentioned earlier. to
Sorry,
be
I'm
another
just
one of their
thinking out
favorite
loud.
code words to describe Jared's killing, which would be magic, magician, disappearing act, Chris Angel.
Correct.
So here we are at State's Exhibit now 18. These are text messages between Ms. Jensen and SL. And in these messages, Ms. Jensen is asking her if she knows
Oh,
someone.
they
She
got him
says,
in.
Shanna needs a guy. And what direction does this conversation take?
Basically, Ms. Jensen's reaching out to Ms. Lee and stating, hey, Shanna needs a guy who does permanent disappearing acts.
And who is Kim Jensen, the sister?
And she says that she needs a magician for
Uh,
stupid, referring to Mr. Bridegan.
Kim Jensen is the friend of
Oh, the
Shanna
friend.
Gardner's.
Okay.
Yeah, from like 2015.
Gotcha. Okay.
That we're talking about the
Right.
funeral potatoes.
Right. Okay.
Hey, Esmeralda.
Hey,
Hope you're having a
Esmeralda.
good night.
And ask if she knows anyone who can basically accomplish this.
And then the messages between Ms. Gardner and Ms. Jensen following that conversation, do they again reference this idea of magic or magician?
Yes, they're initially talking about ways to destroy Mr. Bridegan in reference to feeding him things that might give him a heart attack. And then Shanna makes the comment that the best time for quote unquote magic is when they're amicable.
Wait, did that just say feeding him things for a heart attack?
Something about a
Uh-huh.
heart attack.
Feeding him things
Give
that
him a heart
might
attack,
give him
and
a heart
then
attack.
Shanna makes
Jesus.
the comment that the best time for quote unquote magic is when they're amicable.
So when they're what?
And then here she and Ms. Jensen
Amicable.
are discussing the potential individuals they could contact, including someone named Matt.
Yeah, she makes reference to Matt, who she talked to earlier, who was the trainer from the YMCA that she had the alleged affair with.
Okay, we don't need to get into that for purposes of this hearing. They're referring to someone named Nick, and she says between one of those four. So we have several people, Matt, Nick, the individual that she was speaking to Ms. Lee about,
She was having an
and they start referring
affair?
to them by code names. So M, and then the next slide, which is that there are 2 days of follow-up, July 21st and July 22nd. This is Ms. Gardner in the dark gray, and she is asking Ms. Jensen, do I legit ask Matt about people? Ms. Jensen says to wait, she says nothing, and then the next day, they're again asked, can I ask M today, and to see what H says. Now these text messages,
Am I
this is not the only
correct,
contact
Vivian,
Ms.
that
Gardner and
she was
Jensen
having an
have. They're not
affair
just solely communicating by text, are they?
before
They're
Mario?
communicating via phone in other ways as well.
So in some of these text messages, are there points where the conversation
An
ends
affair
and they
on
fall?
Mario or an
Correct.
affair before, like when she was still married to Jared?
When she was still married to Jared, I think. Oh man, I don't remember what I.
Dang, really, Vivian? That's
Hold on.
crazy.
Yeah.
But yet she wanted
Some.
this guy deceased.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And she was. Oh, I lost my train of thought. Well, she met them because when they said the gym, that's when I was like, oh, they're definitely talking about her then. And
Right.
because she met Mario at the gym as well.
Seems
Mario,
like
she's taller than Mario. Mario's really short.
she's
Just
the gym's her
random.
pickup joint, the YMCA.
Yeah, it seems to
Who
be.
needs Tinder?
Yeah,
Just go to
right.
the YMCA.
She needs the Y.
Mm-hmm.
Had an affair with a tattoo artist when married. Is Matt a tattoo artist? She's got like that full sleeve on her arm.
And we're gonna move on to some 2021 text messages in a moment, but I want to talk about how this kind of discussion continues with Ms. Gardner, not just with Ms. Jensen, but with other individuals. So these text messages go up through 2016. I want to discuss some of these individuals who came forward voluntarily to the Jacksonville Beach Police Department with evidence that Ms. Gardner had made similar comments to them. So let's begin in 2017. Did a relative of Jared Bridegan seek you out?
Yes, Justin Bridegan, who was Jared's brother, came to the police station. He had stated that he had also left the Church of Latter-day Saints, and when Ms. Gardner had found that out, she reached out to him and stated that she wanted to be the cousins together, and so they ended up going over to Mr. Bridegan's home, and where they were letting the kids play. During that time period, Ms. Gardner made the statement to Justin that she at times was so angry with Jared that she considered hiring a hitman to take him out.
Did he believe her to be joking? Did he say whether she said this in a joking manner?
He indicated that he thought that she was being very serious. However, due to the fact that they were divorced, and it was maybe in the past tense context, that was something he needed to alert the police, but he did believe her to be very serious about it.
And other than M and H and all these other individuals, did anybody come forward to you and say that Ms. Gardner attempted to solicit them to actually act as a hitman for Jared Bridegan?
Yes, during the time of their divorce, a tattoo shop owner had come forward by the name of Brad Bird. He stated that he had spent a lot of time with Ms. Gardner when she was doing her tattoos and some other things, and one night they decided to go out for drinks afterwards, and during that time period, she stated that she needed someone to shut Jared up and asked him if he knew people who shut people up. He indicated that the way that he took that conversation was that she was looking for someone to murder her then husband.
Oh,
And
boy.
I also want to talk about an individual who came forward and provided a sworn statement to investigators regarding conversations she'd had with Ms. Gardner, specifically involving her husband, Mario Fernandez-Saldana.
I believe the conversation happened in 2017. A friend and coworker of Ms. Gardner's come forward and stated that this was about the time that she was just meeting Mario and they started dating. And she stated that Shanna told her that Mario had a military background, that he could take some guys, break into Jared's house, and take care of him, and no one would ever know what happened.
Moving on to.
No one would
26
ever know what.
Exhibit 10.
Yeah,
These are
right.
text messages between Ms. Gardner and Ms. Jensen in 2021. And this is a sample, but are there multiple text messages in which Ms. Gardner expresses her discouragement with the child custody battle she's having with Jared Bridegan?
Hey, Bella
Yes, there are
Marie.
lots of examples, both verbally and written, where she
Hope you're doing well.
was very unhappy sharing the kids with Mr. Bridegan.
And she uses language, not just, I want to use the court system, but I'll never be happy so long as they're involved for a while.
Correct.
And then again, this is a pretty lengthy message to Ms. Jensen from Ms. Gardner. And in this, she expresses that she can't bear the thought of 9 more years of fighting for custody of her children. And this is against Exhibit 10. So once you got this phone download from Ms. Jensen, before receiving these messages, had you spoken with Ms. Jensen about her knowledge of Shanna Gardner's involvement in the death of Jared Bridegan?
Yes, she came to the police station and we did interview her.
Did she mention any of this information when she spoke to you at the police station?
Not at all.
Did you serve her, assist in serving her with a subpoena to testify in front of a grand jury in February of 2023?
We did.
Did she appear at the grand jury and give testimony?
She did.
When you gave her that subpoena, were you also monitoring
that's the
Ms.
best you
Jensen's
can do,
poll
Bella
records and
Marie.
calls?
Yes, we were.
And when she got the subpoena for grand jury, did she contact Ms. Gardner?
She did.
And actually, when she was at the grand jury, was Ms. Gardner calling her?
Yes, she was.
I'm glad you
And
popped
what
in
has
here,
Ms. Jensen
though.
told you about her relationship with Ms. Gardner, up and through the murder?
She said that they were very good friends, best friends, and that basically that Ms. Jensen is kind of Shanna's like confidant.
And what did she express about her view of the Jared Bridegan versus Shanna Gardner history?
She is Team Shanna, according to her wording. She was not a fan of Jared Bridegan, and she has a lot of admiration for Ms. Gardner.
Okay. And she described herself as Team Shanna even after Jared's homicide, and even after she was brought in to give testimony in grand jury and on other occasions involving Ms. Gardner's potential involvement.
That's correct.
Eventually, were you present when Ms. Jensen was interviewed in July into August of 2023?
I was.
And at that point, you had all these text messages that she had not disclosed to you.
That's correct.
And when you spoke to Ms. Jensen, with this evidence available, did Ms. Jensen give further testimony about Shanna Gardner's involvement in the planning and the homicide of Jared Bridegan?
She did.
I'm going to go through some of those statements. What did she tell you about her conversation, specifically with Mario Fernandez-Saldana, about killing Jared Bridegan?
She relayed that there were instances where he was so close that he could touch him, and Jared didn't know it.
And just to be clear, Ms. Jensen said that Shanna disclosed to her things that Shanna
Well, I
Gardner
appreciate
and Mario
that, Bella.
Correct.
Did she say that they had several conversations, one conversation?
There were multiple conversations over a multi-year period about Mario killing or finding people who could kill Jared.
Okay, and now we'll get into specific statements. What did Ms. Jensen say Ms. Gardner disclosed to her about Mario and her plans?
No worries, Bella. You don't always have to stay in the
She made a
bushes.
statement about him.
I totally
having
understand.
People, there were a motorcycle gang that lived behind his house that he could get to kill Jared. That there were times where Mario was so close he could reach out and grab Jared and cause his death. And then just more ways that Mario was capable and the right person to get rid of Jared.
Did she say specifically if there was a certain time or context that Mr. Fernandez-Saldana would offer to do this for Ms. Gardner?
It was typically when she would be either upset with him or when she was upset more so with something that had happened between her and Jared in regards to the children. When she would be upset about some type of custody issue or some kind of disagreement they would be in, Mario's solution was always to offer to take care of Jared.
And did Kim Jensen tell you what Shanna took take care of, I'm using quotes, to me?
That would be to kill Jared Bridegan.
And you mentioned that Ms. Jensen,
I mean, call me crazy, but she spoke way too often and to too many people
Mhm.
about getting him offed, you know?
Yep. Yep.
disclosed that Shanna Gardner told her Mario was so close to Jared he could touch him. Did she explain what that meant? Did he actually follow him and was so close he could touch him?
Yes, there were times where he would watch his movements or, like I said, follow him and try to, develop patterns of what he did and where he went and what would be the best way to carry out some type of plan.
Did he call these, did he use any phrasing to describe these moments where he could have done something to Jared Bridegan?
Missed opportunities.
Here's some of the statements we talked about. Did Mario also disclose, or did Ms. Gardner disclose to Ms. Jensen that Mario Fernandez-Saldana had followed him in a vehicle on a prior occasion?
Yes, that he followed him from the house to back to St. John's County.
And what about to the hospital? Okay. Did Ms. Gardner disclose to Ms. Jensen why there was a delay or some kind of reason that this plan wasn't coming to fruition at the time period they're talking about?
There was some discussion between Ms. Gardner and Ms. Jensen that there was a delay in killing Jared, and that was Mario's excuse was, well, it's during COVID, no one leaves their house during COVID, so therefore I can't get a hold of him if he never leaves his house.
During this meeting with Ms. Jensen, did she advise you about Shanna Gardner's knowledge of Henry Tenon?
She did. She said that she had met Mr. Tenon and that she knew that he owned the truck that we had released to the media that we were looking for.
And to be specific, Ms. Jensen told you that she had conversations with Shanna Gardner about Henry Tenon. Were those conversations before or after Henry Tenon was charged with the murder of Jared Bridegan?
Those were before.
So before Henry Tenon was publicly named as the individual involved in the murder of Jared Bridegan, Shanna Gardner and Kim Jensen had discussions about him.
That's correct.
And they had discussions about him owning a truck.
Owning the truck. On surveillance video that we found the night of the homicide, we had identified a vehicle of interest that we believe was involved in the homicide, and that was in fact later proved to be the truck that Mr. Tenon owned.
And Ms. Jensen disclosed to you that Shanna Gardner had discussed this vehicle with her prior to Henry Tenon being arrested for murder, or knowledge that that truck belonged to him being public.
Correct.
I want to talk lastly regarding Ms. Jensen's disclosures at this meeting about what she told you about a trip to Hawaii. The Gardner family, can you describe for the court this annual kind of vacation that they were doing to Hawaii?
They have an annual family trip where they all go to Hawaii and would appear to include all the parents, all the children and their spouses and grandchildren.
And was there a trip to Hawaii in 2022 prior to the murder of Jared Bridegan?
There was a trip to Hawaii approximately a week before the murder.
And did Shanna Gardner and Mario Fernandez-Saldana go on that trip to Hawaii?
They did.
And did they return approximately,
About 4 days before the murder.
so around February 12, 2022?
Correct.
And did Ms. Jensen describe for you a conversation that Shanna Gardner told her she had with Mario Fernandez-Saldana in the week before Jared was killed?
The text messages between the two of them would indicate that their conversation had to do with the fact that Shanna was frustrated with the marriage and that she was going to call it off with him, and that they had discussed that and they were starting plans to do that. However, later she indicated that during that time frame, Mario stated to Shanna that Mario was going to in fact kill Jared, and that if she didn't want it to happen, she needed to speak up and say it now.
Ms. Jensen told you this, and obviously with the testimony of Henry Tenon, that Mario Fernandez came to him.
She was gonna leave
the
him.
day of the homicide on February 16th, saying he needed to do this now to save his
Yeah,
life.
that's what it sounds like.
Ms. Gardner never mentioned any of this information to you when she sat down with you on April 15th, 2022.
No,
Is this information that would have been of interest to you as the investigator into the murder of Jared Bridegan?
absolutely,
And instead, she actually gave you other theories that could send you down a wild goose chase.
correct.
Now, I anticipate that when you're cross-examined, or when defense makes argument, that there will be some indication that Ms. Gardner said no or didn't really know Mario was serious about doing this. So I want to talk to you about her actions and some of your investigation into her actions following the death of Jared Bridegan. So we'll start with the interviews you did with Mr. Fernandez-Saldana and Ms. Gardner in March and April of 2022. Did you also do recorded interviews with Ms. Gardner's children, biological children with Jared Bridegan, whom we refer to as LB and AB?
We did not specifically do those interviews, however, the child protection team at the University of Florida did.
Okay. And I know the court's familiar, but can you explain why it is that you all send children to the child protection team instead of doing interviews yourself?
We generally do not interview anyone under the age of 13. We would send them to a team that includes child psychologists or other trained individuals in a non-threatening, non-traumatic environment to conduct these interviews.
And did AB and LB come to the child protection team and give a recorded forensic interview with the child experts?
Yes, they did.
Do you recall around the date of those interviews?
It would have been a day or two after my initial interview with Shanna.
So sometime in early March of 2022.
Correct.
During the
See
interviews
what
with
trials.
LB and AB, you obviously got an accounting from them of where everyone was in the home that night. Did you note discrepancies between their interviews and what Ms. Gardner and Mr. Fernandez-Saldana had told you?
They both, Ms. Gardner and Mr. Fernandez stated that he was sleeping due to having a bad headache and taking some medication. Both of the kids indicated that they thought that Mario was in his gaming room, but it was, they later stated that they never actually saw
So
him.
Shanna
They
doesn't
said
have
his
any
game
other
console
kids
was
other
actually
than the
playing,
twins?
So they just assumed that that's where he was at.
Correct.
Okay.
And Henry Tenon advised you in a sworn statement that Mario Fernandez actually was not at home playing video games or lying on the couch. He was driving the vehicle to the homicide scene to commit his murder.
That's correct.
So these children are brought to CPT to get this interview. Did Ms. Gardner accompany them?
Yes, she did.
Did Mr. Fernandez-Saldana accompany them?
No, in fact, during one of the interviews, one of the children made a utterance that Mario was on his way to Canada with some friends to go camping.
Okay. And did you later get records,
Thank you,
financial,
Bella.
call detail records, cell site location data to figure out if that was true or not?
We did. We got his financial records and we got his cell site data that showed that he essentially was making his way from Jacksonville to Brunswick, North Carolina, and up to Pennsylvania.
Did he go camping?
He did not go camping.
Was, based on your investigation, can you describe to the court what the nature of this trip was? Was it pre-planned, vacation, business?
I couldn't tell you what the nature of this trip was, other than the fact that he made surprise visits to some people that he barely knew, and he purchased toiletries on the way. Once he got past North Carolina and up to Pennsylvania, he was making hotel reservations as he was driving. So I'd say it was not a planned trip.
And while he's making this unplanned trip up to Canada, presumably, was he in contact with Ms. Gardner by phone?
Yes, he was.
And at some point, did he cease contact with Ms. Gardner?
He was in contact with her essentially until the CPT interviews were done, and then he essentially turned around and came back home.
Moving to August of 2022, this was a key point in your investigation. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
What happened August 18, 2022?
Mr. Tenon was arrested.
And up until that point, Henry Tenon
I just saw that they're due back in court September 23rd.
So next week on Monday. Isn't
Looks
that
like-
Monday?
Jose Baez is accusing the detective, what did it say? Detective of lying in this investigation, withholding 2 months of bank records.
What?
Prosecution of not handing over 2 months of bank records as part of discovery.
Okay. I would think that those bank records would have been accessible. I don't know. Okay.
They have I think it was 7, 8, or 9 terabytes of stuff for
Right.
discovery.
Right.
Like,
I would imagine
Jose
so. Yeah.
Baez has to go through a ton of stuff.
Yep.
Tenon was not on anyone's radar, so to speak, until probably when?
I would say maybe a few months prior to him being arrested.
And in your investigation, what was the relationship you uncovered of Henry Tenon to Mario Fernandez-Saldana and Shanna Gardner?
He lived in one of their rental properties.
And who was the owner or manager of those rental properties?
I'm not sure legally it was Mario Fernandez or their LLC, but one of the two.
And
It says here, bias pointed to the discrepancy in characterizations of the conversation as well as questions of which witnesses were interviewed. And he's talking about this detective.
Right.
As evidence of John's lying on the stand, quote, not just lying once, but time and time again on major critical facts and withholding information, misleading information, and flat out false information, Bias told the judge. This has no place in a court of law.
This has no place in a court of law. Murder doesn't have any place in the court of law. I mean,
Yeah.
And were you able to identify Henry Tenon as a person of interest in the murder of Jared Bridegan?
Yes.
Once you did that, did you, in conjunction with the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office, arrest Henry Tenon on unrelated charges?
That's funny.
Yes. We essentially formed a plan where we would arrest him once he started driving. He's a habitual traffic offender, and that plan was executed and was taken into custody.
I don't think people at large understand. Is this like a common technique that law enforcement does when they're investigating a crime?
Yes, it is.
Does it provide the opportunity to interview somebody who's a potential subject or person of interest?
It does.
Does it present the opportunity to obtain leads and further evidence into that person?
Yes.
So when you arrested Henry Tenon on April 18, 2022, had his name been publicly released anywhere as a person of interest?
Not at all, no.
August 18, 2022. Had you spoken to Mario Fernandez-Saldana or to Shanna Gardner about this person, or asked them any questions, or interviewed them about Henry Tenon?
Not at all.
When Henry Tenon was arrested, was he still living at that home that was run, so to speak, by the First Choice Home Rentals LLC?
Yes, he was.
When he was arrested, what did your investigation uncover about the activity between Mario Fernandez-Saldana and Shanna Gardner when their tenant was arrested on a driving charge?
Right after he was arrested, the other gentleman who was living there used an associate's phone as to not be detected to call Mr. Fernandez.
And how do you know that?
He admitted to doing that.
He told you he used someone else's phone to contact Mario Fernandez-Saldana to tell him Henry Tenon was arrested.
That's correct.
Okay. What did Mario Fernandez-Saldana do?
This started a flurry of calls between Ms. Gardner and Mr. Fernandez. And then Ms. Gardner then reached out to her attorney as well as her PR firm.
Okay. And I have here, is this a timeline of relevant calls for purposes of this hearing for that date, August 18, 2022?
That's correct.
MF means Mario Fernandez.
Correct.
Okay. It says here that Ms. Gardner was speaking with someone named Christopher Thomas of the Intrepid Group and someone named Linda Lucetti. Do you know who these individuals are?
I do.
And who are they?
Christopher Thomas is the owner or president of the Intrepid Group, and Linda Lucetti is a media relations consultant that often works with Mr. Thomas.
In the course of your investigation, did you identify these individuals as having been retained by Ms. Gardner during the course of this investigation to sort of help her with her PR?
Yes, that's correct.
And Intrepid Group and Linda Lucetti, are they based out of Salt Lake City, Utah?
That's correct.
And do they have some affiliation with Ms. Gardner's mother's company?
I believe one or both of them had done some work for Stand Up, and they were offering their services pro bono to Ms. Gardner.
What was significant to you about this type of contact on this date?
I mean, the significance to me is your tenant, who you would likely say you had no clue was involved in this, was arrested for, you didn't know what charges at the time, yet you felt the need to alert your attorney and media consultants that your tenant of your rental property was arrested.
For a driving unsuspended license charge?
Correct.
Did you make attempts to speak to Christopher Thomas and Linda Lucetti and other members of the Intrepid PR crisis management firm?
Myself and one of my colleagues flew to Utah and attempted to speak with them, and they avoided us.
Can you be more specific about your attempts and their avoidance?
Well, Ms. Lucetti was running frantically around in front of her house as to hide from me so that I could see that she was in her house. Mr. Thomas was not in his office, went to his residence, and he had his wife answer the door a couple times to avoid taking some video.
Were you eventually able to receive evidence and statements from Chris Thomas with Intrepid Group after he retained a criminal defense attorney?
Yes, I just said you stated he hired an attorney and contacted state attorney's office directly.
Okay. And we'll get to the information they gave you in a moment. Moving on to states. What's been entered into Evidence 6, Exhibit 12. This is a text message between Ms. Jensen and Shanna Gardner on that date, August 18, 2022. It says, "I don't want anyone to know," and Ms. Jensen says, "I'm not." Can you describe for the court the context of these text messages?
I believe this was like a lunch date that was coming up, and they did not want anyone to know that their tenant had been arrested at that time.
And this text is from the date that Henry was arrested.
That's correct.
State's exhibit, composite exhibit 11, are these the text messages that were turned over by Intrepid PR Group?
Yes.
Okay, and
that's right.
this highlighted number, does that phone number belong to the associate of the Intrepid PR Group?
Yes.
And these texts are dated August 18th and August 22nd, 2022. Was there one person who was willing to speak to you when you went to Utah?
There was.
And without using her name, can you describe who she is?
She was a junior level social media manager at the PR firm.
And she no longer worked for them when you made your trip to Utah?
That's correct.
What did she tell you about the contact between Intrepid Group and their other PR associates at the time and Ms. Gardner on this date?
As soon as Ms. Gardner found out that their tenant had been arrested, she, her words, frantically was trying to reach someone with Intrepid. She couldn't get hold of anyone else just due to the time difference was very early in the morning. However, this
Why can't I see the-
social media person
Sorry,
answered
I'm
her
trying to
phone.
see. Damn, we even sped it up and it still has a long time
And
to
started
go.
taking down notes to give to respondents later on.
What did she say Ms. Gardner relayed to her?
That their tenant had been arrested and that tenant owned the truck that the police were looking for.
Moving further into State's composite exhibit 11, these are text messages with the Intrepid PR Group. These individuals are employees of that group, correct?
That's correct.
And this is dated August 18, 2022, the date of Henry Tenon's arrest on driving on suspended license, habitual charges. We see here, is this green? That is Mr. Thomas, who is the lead on her case.
Correct.
Okay. He said he spoke with Shanna. There were interesting developments in her case. And then moving on, ignore the language, but the last text message is August 24, 2022. Can you describe for the court what your investigation uncovered as to Mr. Thomas's knowledge regarding the charges?
Just that they weren't sure what the charges were, but it seemed to be unrelated to the truck or anything to do with Jared.
And again, at the time these messages are being sent, nobody other than the people who hired Henry Tenon would know of his existence as a link to the murder of Jared Bridegan,
Correct.
other than Jacksonville Beach Police.
Jesus, get hell of me.
In the court's binder of exhibits, State's Exhibit 13 is
When they break, it looks like they're gonna break.
That's a nice shot.
20, huh?
That was a nice shot of the
Right.
dude's head.
Yeah. When they break, I'll probably end the stream here and then pick it up whenever you're available next. My back is like killing me all of a sudden. Like it's just, well, it's not all of a sudden. It's been sore today. I think it's my chair. I don't know. I've been sitting in this damn chair all day.
Yeah, that could be.
But so we'll carry on till then, and then we can pick it up tomorrow.
Okay.
I put a message in the private chat to see when you're available, but
Oh,
um,
okay.
I can always, no worries.
Yeah, I
Is
should
a
be
business
available tomorrow.
record showing the authenticity of
Okay.
Apple records received. Did you receive evidence related to an iCloud belonging to Shanna Gardner?
Yes.
And in particular, were you looking for evidence in that cloud relevant to a Ring camera that Ms. Gardner and Mr. Fernandez-Saldana had in front of their house?
Yes, the
Oh,
ring camera
that
located
could-
outside the front door. The day after detectives went and notified them of Mr. Bridegan's death, they asked to see or if the ring camera had picked up anyone who might have passed by the residence. Ms. Gardner showed the ring to the detective, and there were no recordings past the 16th.
When you received the iCloud return of Ring footage, was there anything significant to you about what was or was not there?
On the iCloud were recordings from the ring camera that we could also tell basically that the camera settings were to constantly record. There were videos on the iCloud that showed both vehicles passing by their residence as well as customers coming to pick up orders or Mr. Fernandez putting an order outside their door. These were all things that would have been, it appeared would have always been picked up by the ring camera. However, on the night of the homicide, there were
Yeah, I don't know,
no,
so it's
activity
just
on the ring camera,
today,
at least
so
in that, indicating that it
I don't
was
know what the
likely
hell.
that the
We did have storms
information
this
was
morning.
either deleted or the camera was set to not record.
And you know that because what did AB and LB told you, or what did they tell you about how they entered the house that night of homicide?
Sound like
They
a squeaky
indicated that
toy.
They typically go through the garage, however the garage door was closed, so they used the keypad on the front door, which would have been captured on the ring camera.
So based on what they told you, did you expect to see at least, at minimum, a Ring footage video of AB and LB entering the home minutes before Jared Bridegan was killed in the night of the homicide?
Based upon the past history that was located on the iCloud, we expected to find them entering the residence as well as Jared's vehicle passing by the camera.
And there was no footage of those events.
That's correct.
And in fact, on this text message on August 22nd, 2022, which is around the same time period Ms. Gardner was speaking to her PR firm about potential charges against Henry Tenon, do she and Kim Jensen have a discussion about Ring footage?
Yes, I sent a subpoena to Ring, which they were nice enough to forward to Mr. Fernandez and Ms. Gardner.
Okay. So Ring was not supposed to do that, I presume.
No.
And so she is discussing, in this particular time in the investigation, which is significant to you, she and Ms. Jensen are discussing that Ring subpoena, and if they have it, they've given video.
Correct. In fact, it was actually a search warrant. It wasn't a subpoena. They referred to it as a subpoena.
Yeah, I'm gonna look into
Exhibit
that
14,
that
this is a
case,
text with Ms.
Vivian.
Jensen, also regarding the cloud, and can you describe to the court what the significance of these texts are? This is September 2022.
This is Ms. Jensen basically asking Shanna, or talking to Shanna about whether or not she still has her old.
Was there like a
cell phone.
documentary on that case, Vivian? Because
And
it
then
sounds
they were
kind of
stating
familiar
that
to
without
me.
her creating
Like,
a new
maybe
cloud
I've watched
ID,
the
all of her
documentary or
data would just
something.
essentially be backed up to the secondary cell phone.
The name
which would
Crystal
be the
Rogers
first
sounds
second
familiar, but it
Ms.
also
Jensen,
sounds like a common name, so I'm like, I don't know if I've heard it.
Correct.
When you received,
Elsewhere,
most
you
of the
know?
evidence that we discussed in this hearing came from the cell phone of Kim Jensen.
That's correct.
Did you do examinations of cell phones, devices, clouds, returns for Shanna Gardner?
Yes, we did. We did cell phone downloads as well as Google and iCloud search warrants.
In the returns of those items, devices, and returns, did you find the same conversations that you had found on Ms. Jensen's phone?
Some of the conversations were there, but a lot of the conversations were not.
So like the Ring cloud, or sorry, the cloud of the Ring footage, you were expecting to see evidence that was not present on Ms. Gardner's devices.
That's correct.
Oh, just started arresting people. Oh, interesting.
Henry Tenon was eventually arrested and charged with murder of Jared Bridegan.
That's correct.
And do you recall the date on which that occurred, or the time period in which that occurred?
Early January 2023.
Leading up to the arrest of Henry Tenon, were there investigative techniques being pursued by the Jacksonville Beach Police Department?
Yes, during the time that we knew we were going to announce the charges against Tenon, we had also received a court order for a wire intercept.
And a wire intercept to intercept phone, text, and audio communications between Ms. Gardner
I just got a notification that says, Irvine traffic collision involving fire truck with injuries. That's not good.
Gardner, Mr. Fernandez-Saldana, and other individuals of interest.
That's correct.
And that
It's in
court order was
Kentucky.
did an application
Oh.
and a judge granted that.
That's correct.
In order to get chatter generated, what did you all decide to do to what the phrase being trigger communications?
We decided to go
Definitely,
ahead and have
I
a
wrote
wire in
that
place
down,
before
so
the
I'm gonna
charges
look
were
into
announced
that
against
case.
Mr. Tenon. We did that, and then we made the announcement about the arrest, or the additional charges that we added.
And before you made the announcement about Henry Tenon's arrest, did you purposely leak information to the media that a break or an arrest was imminent?
Yes.
And did the media run with that information?
Yes.
Okay. Did you say who was going to be arrested?
No.
So the information was just that an arrest or big break was coming.
That's correct.
And Your Honor, the state has moved into evidence 15, 16, and 17, which are
Hi,
wiretap recording
Shanna.
calls of Ms. Gardner from the wiretap. For time's sake, I'm not going to play the entire calls and just have detective testify to the relevant portions. Beginning with call 170, which is state's exhibit 15, what was one of the first calls that Shanna Gardner made after this leak was out and being publicized?
She was speaking with Ms. Jensen, wondering if she should give Mario a heads up about the information she received.
And do you remember specifically in greater detail kind of how it was that she learned of the leak and what her reaction was?
I actually don't remember how she learned of the leak.
Did she describe to Ms. Jensen how she was going to give Mario a heads up or a warning that a big break was coming?
She talked about actually using her neighbor's phone in order to call Mario to give him information about it.
And that neighbor would be Marla Rogers?
That's correct.
During the entirety of the wiretap, was this a common theme that Ms. Gardner and Ms. Jensen discussed that their phones might be monitored?
Yes, that's correct. She made statements about the fact that she was warned that her phone was likely tapped.
And that was January 23rd, 2023. We're going to move on to a few days later when the arrest of Henry Tenon as the person responsible for the death of Jared Bridegan, at least responsible for the actual pulling of the trigger, is released. I want to discuss a phone call that Ms. Gardner made to her public relations firm on 1/25/2023. And I've included a portion of the transcript that the monitor used here. Can you describe for the court what was significant to you about this conversation?
She said that she admitted to knowing Henry, that she had met him approximately 5 years ago, but there should be no paperwork tying him to the rental property.
At the time that she made this call, the media did a good job. They covered this fairly quickly. But at the time she made this call, had the media yet reported that Henry Tenon was linked to Mario Fernandez-Saldana?
No.
At the time
Oh,
she made
wow,
this call,
Vivian.
the media reported that Henry Tenon was a tenant to Mario Fernandez-Saldana and Shanna Gardner's LLC.
No.
So in this call, she's telling them that Henry Tenon, the person under arrest, is in fact a tenant, but there's no paperwork.
I didn't realize there was new drama with her.
There's new drama?
Yeah, she said, "Do you watch the Casey Anthony?" Oh, I
I'm
thought I
not
was going to say.
surprised though. That chick is just pure drama.
Yeah,
That whole
I wonder-
family is whacked.
she's one of those people that she can change her look as many times as she wants, but she's so known
Right.
that it's just, I don't even know what she could do. Like facial surgery? I don't know.
Paperwork or payments attaching him.
Correct.
What was the reaction of the individuals within Intrepid PR Group?
Their initial reaction was, well, that must have been a long time ago, right? But you didn't, this was not a recent payment or anything like that. However, Ms. Gardner went on to tell them, in fact, that no, that they had given him money earlier in the year. At that point, they basically told her that they should probably stop communicating about this.
So she advised the public relations firm that she and Mario Fernandez-Saldana had paid Henry Tenon
Wait, hold
money
on.
for a
She took
What?
a married man of 22 years from his wife?
What?
Oh my God. No, I had
Why?
not heard of that, but
Wow.
wow. Goodness.
for a pallet business within the past year.
Correct.
And discuss a call also made that day. I have the time notated wrong in here. It was at 17:27 on 125:23 between Ms. Gardner and Ms. Jensen. And was there another call in which she discussed Henry Tenon and money
He
monitoring?
moved her down the street from his family. The wife moved out
Yeah, just
and
the-
she moved in the, oh my God.
Was Tenon
Jeez
wanting to use information
Louise.
against them?
That's
Did Gardner let her
crazy.
deal or throw them under the bus or twist them as being involved in this?
Throughout the course of the wiretap, Ms. Gardner and the hearing, and they're referencing that she might reactivate her other one. Were there discussion amongst them about using other
Vivian's
devices,
giving me so many
platforms,
things to
phones,
look
et
up.
cetera, to
I
contact
know. I
Ms.
cannot
Gardner was just
believe
frequently
she.
talking about
Who?
whether they
Who would
could
throw
use
away their
FaceTime
family?
or
Yeah.
other applications
Right.
that were encrypted to communicate so that they cannot be intercepted by law enforcement.
Not to give away state secrets, but can you evade law enforcement interception by using other platforms and devices?
Yes, you can.
The last thing I want to talk about is some of Ms. Gardner's activities following the arrest of Mario Fernandez-Saldana, which came in March of 2023 after Henry Tenon gave testimony against him. Was Ms. Gardner living in Florida during the wiretap?
Yes. Or no, excuse me, she was in Washington State.
And how did you find out that Ms. Gardner had moved from Jacksonville, Florida to Washington State?
U.S. Postal Inspector.
After Mario Fernandez-Saldana was arrested for the murder of Jared Bridegan, conspiracy and solicitation and child abuse, did Ms. Gardner remain in Washington State?
No, there was a 5-month period where she was not with her children and she was moving around,
And how did you determine that?
mostly through cell site records.
Where did you determine that she was living?
Appeared she had rented an Airbnb in Tallahassee for a while, and then at some point had moved on to Savannah.
And during this time, she was using a secondary phone or a different phone number than the one you had associated to her?
That's correct. She had activated, the day that she flew from Washington to Tallahassee, she had reactivated her little burner phone.
And you say quote-unquote burner phone. Where did that quote come from?
When officers went to Washington to serve a search warrant, one of her children asked if we were looking for mommy's burner phone.
Detective Johns, obviously Ms. Gardner
Someone
did have
got
cell
shushed.
phones and phone numbers during the time period of investigation prior to her
I
arrest.
heard that.
And your team effectuated arrest on her in August of 2023 in West Richland, Washington.
That's correct.
Why did you all make the decision to effectuate an arrest on her rather than allowing her to turn herself in?
We wanted to make sure that she did not.
Do live crew. I like that
has
name. That's cute.
Several assets, and it would be very easy, given her geographic position, to get a private jet and fly there.
When you did research into the financials of her home in West Richland, Washington, who bought that home and who paid for it?
It was purchased by an LLC that is owned by her parents.
Detective Johns, headphone on her.
Yes.
Wait, her parents?
Bought the house in Washington?
Detective
It sounds
Johns,
like.
I just want to summarize
Yeah.
the main points of your testimony that I think are important for the court to consider. One being, where did the money that was paid to Henry Tenon to kill Jared Bridegan come from?
The money came from the trust that was established by Mr. and Mrs. Gardner.
And was that trust held in the name of Shanna Gardner?
No. Well, it was, the trust itself was named the Shanna Gardner Irrevocable Trust, yes.
And the funds from the Shanna Gardner Revocable Trust that paid Henry Tenon were moved from the trust into First Choice Home Rentals LLC.
That's correct.
And the owners of
Oh, shit. Did you catch that?
No, I missed that.
They're talking about the trust.
Right.
So you're
It was
right.
named the Shanna Gardner Irrevocable Trust, yes.
And the funds from the Shanna Gardner Revocable Trust that paid Henry Tenon were moved from the trust into First Choice Home Rentals LLC.
That's correct.
And the owners of the LLC are who?
The owners of the LLC are Shanna, Gardner, and Mario Fernandez.
Ooh.
Her
And
parents,
Detective John,
Yep.
of your
the
entire
trust.
investigation, was there anybody else that you uncovered?
They essentially
with a
paid for
motive
it.
Of such depth
Yeah.
and breadth as that of Ms. Gardner to have Jared Bridegan killed?
No.
Yeah, her parents have a
And
lot of
in your
money.
investigation, you obviously uncovered all these trail of individuals and text messages in which Ms. Gardner incited, encouraged, solicited, and asked other individuals to help find someone who appears someone to do this task.
Yes.
And Ms. Gardner, again, never mentioned any of this information to you when you interviewed her as a witness looking for helpful information in this case.
That's correct. You never mentioned anything.
And she never came forward, even over time,
Gonna
as
have the body
all these
cams.
other events unfolded, including Mario Fernandez-Saldana's unexplained trip up north, the arrest of Henry Tenon, her move to Washington, or her moves to Tallahassee's van.
Correct.
And at this time, I have no further questions.
All right, we're going to take a 15-minute recess.
Okay, so we got that. Let me, I'm gonna, actually, I can add it after. I was going to say, I'm going to add both of the body cams
Mm-hmm.
to the description, but let me just grab the playlist real quick.
What were their body
Because-
cams of the arrest?
Mario and, yeah, of
Okay.
Mario and Shanna.
Okay.
I'll add them individually when I'm done, but they are, let me see. No, they're not the most recent. They are in this though, but I'll get them as soon as I'm
Okay.
done here. I'll get them added to the description. Shanna and
She could only get it once Jared was out of the picture.
yes. Mm-hmm.
Really? Ooh. They arrested her in Richland? That's up here.
Yeah.
So they
In a
arrested
nice
her.
house.
Yeah, they
Mhm.
arrested her in Pasco. Okay. Interesting.
Well, yeah, he was still in Florida,
Right, right.
and they'll show you the home that she lived at.
Mm-hmm.
You'll see that, and you'll see like their police station there. So the playlist that the body cams are in, that playlist, and I uploaded them August of last year.
Okay.
So let's see how long. One of them's 41 minutes and 53 seconds, and the other one is 40 minutes and 36 seconds. Mario is like a chatty Cathy. Like,
Is he?
yeah. But Shanna, not so much.
Yeah, Shanna probably
So-
knew she was in deep doo-doo.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So if you're looking,
Yeah, Richland is in Washington State. It's in
yeah,
the
she moved to Washington.
yeah, it's in the middle
She was-
of Washington, like
she
in
was
on the border though, of Washington border, but inland in the Tri-Cities.
yeah. The she was someone took a photo of her. She was working in a bakery
She was working in a bakery.
in Washington. Yeah. Yeah. Mhm. I don't know if she owned it. I
I'll have
can't
to ask my
remember.
friend if she knows her because my friend owns a bakery not in Richland, oh, what is it? It's in the Tri-Cities. Kennewick.
Olympia?
In Kennewick.
Oh,
No, like the Tri-Cities is like Pasco County. So like Richland, Kennewick. I don't remember what the third city is. Pasco, maybe?
I heard. Is that Boogie?
Yes. I don't know what his problem is.
That's funny.
He is funny. He's a loudmouth. He's a big old loud Maine Coon.
I don't know where my dogs went. Both of them are. They just like bailed on me tonight.
They're like out. I'm out.
Well, it makes me wonder if we have storms again because
You're way north, like Spokane north.
Yeah, Stitching's in Washington. I wasn't gonna say that. I was.
I mean, you don't have to. Yeah, you don't have to say where.
Well, no, stitching is she's been open with that. I just was
Yeah,
gonna let her say it. Stitching's a sweetheart and an amazing quilter.
I wish I could quilt.
I can hardly sew a button.
Yeah, exactly. Me too.
Snowish.
Oh,
Oh,
Snowish. Okay.
wait a minute. Hold on. Let me think. Is that where?
Shh.
I'm trying to think if that is where. Never mind. I'm not gonna. It's a really big YouTuber. That well, Tati lived up there.
Tati Westbrook?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow.
She just moved to from Washington to Texas not that long ago.
That's a big difference.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, they had a house in California, and then they sold that, and then they moved to well, they had the Washington house and the California house, and then they sold the California house about 20 miles north of Seattle.
Yeah, I know where Snowish is.
She did. She lives in Texas now. So, yeah. All of her family is from the area up there. Yeah, what a culture shock. Seriously.
Mm-hmm. I have a lot of family that's in a little bit south of Seattle, in like Renton, Kent area. 75.
Where summers are an average of 75.
Couple
Boy,
weeks. I see. I
75
could
in the
handle 86.
summers.
I just put the city in the
That's
top 5 of the coldest cities.
yeah, 75 in the summer. Ugh,
That's nothing.
no thanks. Mm-mm. But yeah.
I wish. Portland
There's
was
some
kind of
weird
like that. When I
things
first moved
happening with
up
the
here,
weather.
it was, I mean, not to that extreme, but like if you had a week in like the 90s.
Yep. I know. I was just going to say that
Yeah,
the temperatures in
yeah,
Oregon
yeah.
has changed so much over the
And
last
it's
few
and the
years.
same thing in the winter. Like last winter, we had
Yep.
we broke the record for snow and cold.
Yeah.
And then the summer before that, we broke the high with 118
High. It was
in the summer.
so hot.
Like I literally, the streetcar lines out here started melting because it was so hot. They had to shut down the streetcar. It
Yeah.
was
It's
crazy. But then, yeah, then it gets so it's like just in the last, 11 or 12 years that I've been up here, like the temperatures have changed dramatically. And it's just crazy to me.
yeah. I mean, the summers used to be so short over there
Yeah.
and just not very high at all.
Mm-mm.
Like it would be a shock if you got above 90.
Right.
It's like 80 something on like the hottest part of the summer.
Yeah.
Now it's, hitting 100
Yep.
regularly.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we had, I think, like almost 3 straight weeks of almost like high 90s, low 100 weather.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It always makes me laugh though, because whatever the temperature is in like the Willamette Valley area,
Yeah.
it's always like 20 degrees colder on the coast.
Yep. Yep. The coast is freaking cold. Like it rarely
Yeah.
gets. And
I
then,
know.
oh my gosh.
And then traffic gets backed the hell up if it's
Yep.
hot as shit.
If it's hot or nice, yeah.
Yeah.
It's like you're going to be sitting on
Yeah.
26
I can
forever.
remember it took boys and I went there to go get clams, steamer clams
Yeah.
to put on the barbecue.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'd make day trips all the time just to
Yeah.
go pick something up or, whatever, because
Yeah.
it's only like an hour away.
Yeah.
And it was so hot but then I got stuck in traffic for like 4 hours trying to come
Oh,
home. It was
God.
miserable. And it was on Highway 22.
Oh, okay.
And
Oh, God.
yeah.
Yeah. So you were going out that way. So usually I go out 26 out to like Seaside and then down.
Mhm. Yeah, no, I was going to Lincoln City.
Yeah.
There was like this little
I
like
love Lincoln City.
small, yeah, same. But yeah, it was miserable. And a lot of 22, I mean, I don't know if they've changed it, was like one way, or one way roads,
Yeah.
like not
Yeah.
one way. What am I trying to say?
One lane. It's like a lane in each direction.
Yeah. Yeah. And so if you got stuck out there, you're
Yeah.
fucked.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Minus 40. No, thank you.
oh, hell no. I wouldn't even go outside. No way.
Nope.
Mm-mm.
Me neither. I don't even like going outside here when it's in the teens.
I hate being cold. I hate it. But I also hate being really hot. So
See, I will take cold over heat, but not that kind of cold.
yeah, I don't like I hate sweating. Like I don't like I feel so grossed out.
I know. We almost moved to Michigan, and I just couldn't do it. I'm like, I can't do that kind of snow. I can't. And
Yeah,
humidity.
that's too mhm.
I can't. No, thank you.
Yeah.
I'm a West Coast girl. I can't deal with those extremes.
Yeah, it's been getting just weird. I don't know.
Yeah,
Like
no, I don't like it's and it's been more humid here too. I mean, I know we don't get like East Coast, Midwest level of humidity here, but it's been pretty humid. Like we've had
yeah.
a few storms where it'd be like in the 80s and it starts hailing and pouring rain and thunder and lightning, which isn't typical. But we've had
We've
like
had
4 or 5 of
and
those already.
we've had a ton of storms more than usual here. And not only that, but like tornado warnings.
Ugh, I
So
couldn't
I
do
don't
that.
know. The weather is weird as shit.
Yeah.
Like I was watching today, there's like a cold front coming down from Canada, and it is going to meet with hot air coming up through.
The Gulf.
I'm not a meteorologist, but
Yeah.
I was watching something on it today, and it was like really unusual weather that's coming.
Yeah, and our
So
weather patterns have just gotten jacked up.
yeah, yeah,
Like it's crazy. I don't know if it's like that everywhere in the world, but I know here it's just been not normal
no,
until the end of
no, it's
May.
been
Snow until the end
yeah,
of May.
yeah,
That's
forget that.
crazy.
I'd be wanting to move somewhere where it's not negative 40. Like that's too much.
That's too much. That's crazy. That's like Alaska
Small
level.
small town 45 minutes from me has the only F5 tornado in Canada. Oh, at the tip of Tornado Alley.
10 tornadoes? Are they like at least small, relatively small? I didn't even know they got tornadoes in Canada.
Yeah, I think a tornado even touched down in Minnesota today.
Jeez.
And I think there's tornadoes happening in Iowa. Or there's going to be tornadoes touching in Iowa. I can't remember which one it is.
Iowa though, they get tornadoes sometimes. I mean, they're kind of considered
Yeah, they're right in like Tornado Alley.
corn land.
Yeah. Yep. I'm just glad I have a shelter
Yeah.
built in my house.
Yeah,
So
you would have to. F2 or F3, but you get an F4 yearly. Ooh. I couldn't do it. See, I couldn't live where they have tornadoes are the things that freak me out. Like, I'll take an earthquake any day.
Oh man, some of these storm chasers would freak you the hell out then. Especially Reed. He gets
Yeah, I was watching
into
him that one time.
I think I sent you links for it.
Yeah.
He gets like right into
He
him.
gets right in it with his little,
Yeah.
what is it called? What does he call
The
that thing?
Dominator.
Yes, the Dominator. That thing.
They
That's
actually
crazy.
on their merch, they have like a blueprint of the Dominator, and it's like it looks like a old school blueprint, you know, like a vintage
Yeah,
one.
yeah, yeah.
And I'm really tempted to get one of those to put into the office since I'm
Oh,
making
that would
it
be
like
cool.
a
That would actually be
like
really
a
cool.
I think so too. And frame it.
I have a friend who's a pilot for an airline, and she has like blueprints of the airports that she flies in and out of all the time.
Oh, that'd be cool.
So it's really
Yeah.
cool. Like in her living room, she's got like all these airport blueprints of where she flies in and out of. It's really cool.
Yeah, I think it would be cool.
Yeah, you better have a basement, Jill. Jeez.
Rye's already marked his territory in this office because the only thing hanging on the wall
Yeah.
is like I don't know when it was. 4 years ago maybe. I got him this picture of Joe Rogan that is
Okay.
dressed in like it's a vintage looking picture.
Yeah.
But he's got like on I think it's either an old school military photo or uniform on, but it's like it looks painted.
Oh, that's
I'll have to take a
interesting.
picture of it. And anyways, I had it framed and he stuck it up over by the light switch.
It's like mine. This is where this goes.
Yeah. So yeah, I'll take a picture of it. But anyways, I'm gonna head out of here because my back is
Alrighty.
killing me. I need
Alrighty.
to get some ibuprofen or something. Thank you so much, Vivian, for your insight on all of this stuff because it has been a while since I've
Look at this Casey Anthony
kept up
crap.
on this. Yeah, I know. I want to look up this Casey Anthony stuff and Crystal Rogers. So
God, it sounds really familiar, the Crystal Rogers. I'll have to look that up
same.
too.
But if it's new, I'm interested to see what that's about.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll be back, I think, tomorrow to finish this up.
Yeah.
So I'll get that scheduled. I don't know. It might be first thing it might be in the morning, but we'll see. So I thank you guys for joining us. And if you don't mind, hit the like on the way out. And thank you everyone for stopping in. And
Have a
we'll
good
see you
night.
guys. Well, yep. We'll see you guys tomorrow. Good night.